Impact segment tonight. Washington Post reporter Sally Quinn runs the newspaper's online religious website. Responding to Sarah Palin saying she puts her life in God's hands, Miss Quinn wrote, quote, "What does she believe is God's plan for her? Does she have any free will, or is everything preordained? Did God plan for her to run for vice president? If so, why did she and McCain lose?" Unquote. Joining us now from Washington is Sally Quinn. Now, do you think Sarah Palin's view of God is simplistic based upon what she said to Oprah Winfrey and Barbara Walters?
Well, I wouldn't say simplistic because I don't ever like to criticize anybody's views. We all have our own views and our own faith or lack of faith, our own ways of deciding what is moral and what our values are. So that I wouldn't use that word, but I do think that she talks a lot about putting herself in the hands of God and being a Christian and trying to lead a Christian life. And I couldn't help but compare her to Pastor Rick Warren, who she talks about in her book as having prayed with. I had lunch with Rick Warren on Friday. He's an absolutely fantastic guy. His book, A Purpose-Driven Life, has sold more copies in English than any other book in history except for the Bible. He tithes 90% of everything he makes to the church. He and his wife Kay do. The lead of his book was, "It isn't about you." And it seems to me that her book is a lot of payback, a lot of trying to get back at people. She's angry at the press.
Yeah, but she has a perfect right to be. Look, I read the book, and I don't have any beef at all with her trying to set the record straight. She's been hammered worse than anybody, maybe with the exception of Nixon and Bush. But let's get back to the faith angle. When you write about the way she sees her faith, it seems to me that you may be questioning that. And Christians basically believe, and I'm generalizing now, that there is an active God, that you pray to an active God, and the God has a plan for you. You have free will, you decide for yourself, but there is a plan. That seems to be what Sarah Palin is saying in her book. That's what I took away. I don't think there's anything wrong with that at all.
No, I don't think that there's anything wrong if she believes that God has a plan, but it seems inconsistent because on the one hand, if God has a plan, then you would think that she would agree with and accept God's plan. But then, of course, God planned for her daughter to get pregnant by Levi Johnson, and then God planned to have Levi Johnson pose for Playgirl magazine.
Here's where you're going off the rails, Miss Quinn. And I'm talking from a Roman Catholic point of view now. God has a plan for you, but you can disrupt the plan. Evil can intrude in your life and make you do things that God does not want you to do. This isn't Calvinism. This isn't John Calvin saying everything's predetermined. You have no say in it. Mrs. Palin believes that there's a plan, but free will can alter the plan. And again, I don't see anything wrong with that at all. But you're coming at it from a Calvinistic point of view that, hey, if it's a predetermination, why would anybody get pregnant? Why would she lose the vice presidency?
Well, I do think that she's inconsistent about her views of God's plan. I think that when she likes what God's plan is, that she's all for it. When she doesn't like it, then somehow free will doesn't seem to be what motivates her.
Well, give me an example of when she doesn't like God's plan.
Well, I think she probably didn't like God's plan to go on, have her go on Katie Couric.
But that was a decision. It got nothing to do with it. It was a free will decision made by her in a campaign.
Right.
Let me give you something that I took away from the book. And last question, I want your reaction. She accepted the fact that she was born, that her baby had Down syndrome. She could have aborted the baby, but she didn't because she believes that it was God's will that the baby be born to the Palin family. I admire that.
Well, one of the things that I had a problem with was that she talked about how she had considered abortion. And she said, I could have gone off and had an abortion and no one would ever have known. And everybody said, well, isn't that great? But suppose she had said that now, 2 years later. Suppose she'd said, I have this Down syndrome baby, I can't handle it. I could throw him off the cliff and no one would ever know. People would respond differently to that.
Response. Yeah. Look, I didn't have any problem. I don't have it. Look, I think you summed it up very well in the beginning. Everybody's faith is personal, and I don't question people's faith, and I didn't question Sarah Palin's in her book.